Well, I guess this is the first one I've made in a while. I guess we're gonna get on back on this Willie Lynch thing. Now looking around and on YouTube and found a few channels that placed, you know, they were in the ballpark, but I mean they didn't go deep enough with it. You know, I'm one of those cats. You know, I look at the psychological aspects, I look at the physiological aspects, I look at the cultural aspects, the sociological type aspects of how particular problems affect us as a whole. Now, one of the vids that I was looking at was they were talking about why black men and black women can't get along. Well, this is going to be the first video in a couple of videos that's going to break this down so that perhaps we can visualize what's going on and create a situation that's conducive to changing this attitude. And you know, this may actually take a couple of generations to get done, but it's going to have to be some things that are going to have to be changed, and there's going to have to be some things that's going to be have to be stopped. So to begin, let's understand what Willie Lynch was. Willie Lynch, whether he was a real person or not, doesn't matter, but the Willie Lynch program, not doctrine, program, created a situation of forced evolution in the African species. It created a situation where men were forced to fear, women were forced to depend, and the children learned, the female child learned that she cannot be protected by the African male, and the African male child learned that the only way to be safe was to remain in the protective custody of his mother. Now that's a mouthful right there, but if you look at it, it's the crux of the problems that we're having today socially in the African American community. Our women don't want to depend on us, only when they need us. Our little girls, they love us, but all the while mama's chipping away at her understanding of her love for her father by example, being disrespectful, independent to the point where it's counterproductive to the development of a family, a growth of a family. Our boys are in two positions. They are either rebelling against it in a violent and hostile and antisocial manner, or they're being feminized. And what I've seen happening is that after these young boys grow up, particularly the ones that have been feminized, and notice I'm not saying gay, but I'm saying feminized. Once these little boys grow up, then they become feminine men. Now, how did Willie Lynch trigger such a drastic change in a people who were proud, who had their own social structure set up, their own everything set up, where the men were the leaders, the women were their helpers, the children learned from the men, the little boys learned from the men, the little girls learned from the women, and they collectively protected each other. Well, effectively what the Willie Lynch program did was made Massa the African woman's husband by default. Well, I mean, this is how I come to that conclusion. After reading the Willie Lynch doctrine and how to make a slave, and visualizing the what happened and how it happened and the repercussions of what happened, the physicalness of what happened, the woman herself became dependent upon Massa. Massa made it a point to make her the head of the household. Massa made it a point to demasculate the African male. It made it a point for her to see that this man, although he bigger, stronger, faster, more deadly than Massa could ever dream of being, he wasn't strong enough to protect her and her children. Massa gave her everything she needed: shelter, food, water, medicine, protection. It's pretty much the same as in today's today's society. Massa gives her a Lone Star card, a food stamp card. Massa puts her up in a house on Section 8. He provides her with Medicaid. He protects her by, if you there with her, and even if she wrong, start a disagreement, she call that man. When them white folks show up, they gonna be on her side, not your side. So it's the same situation, just a modern swing to it. One of the things that I've always wanted to do was make a movie about the Willie Lynch doctrine. And one particular part about this movie, I wanted to show, like in The Passion of the Christ, the actual brutality of what it took to force an evolution in a species. An immediate evolution in a species. Now, I know the average black person couldn't watch it. I know the average white person couldn't watch it. It'd be one of them underground movies that nobody would watch, unless you buy a bootleg or something. Because it would literally shock a culture into a realization of a great wrong. And perhaps it would even switch back to the default setting of African American culture. Think about it. If we could go back to the day before Willie Lynch, before Massa made a slave, what would we be today? You think about Hispanics. Hispanics were allowed to come into this country, and which wasn't a bad thing. I think the most devastating part of that was they were allowed to hold on to their culture. Now, I ain't fighting, I ain't, hating on them for maintaining their culture, but it allows me to point out that because we lost our culture, because we lost our language, because we lost our religion, or it was taken from us, we've been lost for 400 years. So I'm gonna go back to this here in a little bit, but I just wanted to put that little bit out there, a little something for you to marinate on, something to think about on, because this is really a deep thing, and this is something that really can't be rushed. It has to be put into a context that we can see why, people like Lil Wayne is popular. We can see why we so hell-bent determined to run in behind President Obama. Why we so busy listening to these big-time preachers. Why we so busy being isolated within our own homes, where we don't find no peace on the job, we don't find no peace on the ride home, and we don't find no peace when we get home. So we're going to break this down in a later video. We're going to break it down into sections, and we're going to start with the actual making of a slave. And I'm going to see if I can get you to follow with me and feel what I felt when I read it. You know, it's like, people ask me, to this day, I still haven't seen Passion of the Christ. People ask me, man, you ain't seen Passion of the Christ? No, I ain't seen Passion of the Christ. Because when I read the Bible, and I see what they did to him according to the Bible, every black person ought to be able to feel what happened to him down in their very, very DNA. Because it's the same thing that happened to your people, your ancestors, who actually experienced that. And that is passed on in your genetic code. And that means you have to get in touch with yourself so that you can feel what I'm talking about, and then maybe to compel you to do something different and reverse what's been done to us. Thank you. See you in a little bit.